if you have a mixture of sizes of gravel, intrinsically, the finer stuff is easier to move. It's lighter. Now, there's some compensating effects called hiding, but intrinsically, finer stuff is easier to move. Now, if you measure the sediment transport, the bedload transport in a river, in a gravel bed river, you're going to get a whole range of sizes. You'll get a size distribution to what was actually transported. And half of that size distribution is going to be finer than the median, and the other half will be coarser. And this is a question. How can it move the coarse half at the same rate as the fine half if the coarse half is intrinsically harder to move?
That's right.
How do you do that? One way is to over-represent the coarse material on the surface so that the surface is coarser than the material below. And it's very common to find that in rivers, that the material on the surface is armored or paved, as they call it, and the material below is finer, sometimes substantially so. For most gravel bed rivers, every size that you find in the surface layer can also be found in the substrate, but there's a whole lot more fine material down there.
That's right.
So that's sort of the idea. We'll give a Chinese metaphor that I used. In 1983, I went to China when the economy was a command economy, and it was not a market economy, and the government had factory number 24 for beer and factory number 13 for bicycles. And some factories turned out really nice bicycles, and some factories turned out really crappy bicycles. Okay? Now, and then the Chinese people would know which one was the good bicycles. Now, you suppose you have a bicycle store, and the government has decided you will be delivered 50 of the good brand a month and 50 of the crappy brand a month. You have to sell them all in that month for a new shipment. How are you going to sell the crappy ones at the same rate as the good ones? The idea is on the display floor, you over-represent the crappy ones in the hope that people say, oh, that one, we'll take that. And then you can get the crappy ones and the good ones to sell at about the same rate because people can't find the good ones very often.
This is brilliant. I love this.
And then the idea is if coarse particles are hard to move, over-represent them on the surface so that the fact that each grain is hard to move is compensated by the fact that there's a whole lot more of them, mass-wise. Suppose we have 10 pounds of coarse particles and 10 pounds of fine particles and put them on the bed and we run a floor over them, okay? The fine particles will get preferentially moved.
Right.
And so after a while, you'll deplete the bed of fine particles, okay? But after enough fine particles have gone, there'll be so many coarse particles that even though they don't move that easily, there's enough of them to counterbalance their mobility. So you maybe only move one particle per minute instead of one particle per second. But if 60 times more coarse particles than fine particles, they can go at the same mass transport rate.
And so that it's like you're putting more of the less desirable bicycles up front.
Exactly.
And so when I
And
go out,
nature should do that automatically.
and so when I go out into a river and I see mainly gravel and cobble on the top, and when you scrape it off, it's actually mainly sand below. It's because it's the river's trying to sell the cobble. Right? It's trying to move the cobble.
It's got to get them down somehow.
Yeah, and so the otherwise you would just deposit a big pile of gravel and cobble.
Yeah.
And so the only way you can move it at the same rate as the finer particles is to over-represent it on the surface.
That's the idea. And that's pretty much how we think that garden variety gravel bed streams operate.